In a society that seems to reward those who shout the loudest, have you ever wondered how some people manage to command respect without having to advertise their qualities? How they move through the world with a quiet confidence that speaks louder than any words. Maybe you've noticed that person at work, the one who rarely raises their voice in meetings, but when they do, everyone listens. Or maybe you know someone who, even when faced with devastating emotional storms, maintains an unwavering dignity that inspires everyone around them. In a world where anxiety seems to be our constant companion, where relationships fall apart at the slightest hint of pressure, and where depression lurks in the corners of our modern minds, there's an ancient wisdom that has never been more relevant than it is today. The Stoics, practical philosophers of antiquity, discovered something profound. A person's true worth lies not in what they say about themselves, but in how they live, how they face adversity, how they maintain their integrity when no one is watching. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. This simple quote from Epictetus, a slave who became one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, captures the essence of what we'll explore today: how to prove your worth without uttering a single word about it. On this journey, we won't just seek theoretical knowledge. We'll dive into concrete practices that strengthen the mind, transform relationships, and offer a path to finding serenity even in the midst of chaos. Whether you're struggling with anxiety, seeking solidity in relationships, or simply looking for a way to live with more purpose and less noise, there's something here for you. By the end of this video, you'll have practical tools, not just concepts, to cultivate an inner strength that manifests naturally in your actions, eliminating the need for verbal self-promotion. Because, as we'll see, real value never needs to announce its arrival. It simply shows up. Let's begin this journey by exploring how the ancient Stoics incorporated this quiet strength into their own lives and what we can learn from them today. Chapter 1. The Silent Strength of the Stoics. More than 2,000 years ago, on the streets of Athens and Rome, there walked men who lived a philosophy that was radical for their time, and perhaps even more radical for ours. They were not known for their grandiose proclamations or their ostentatious displays of wealth, but for something much rarer: the absolute consistency between what they believed and how they lived. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome and one of the best-known Stoics, possessed nearly unlimited power. He could have lived in unbridled luxury, but he chose a simple life. During military campaigns, he slept on the floor with his troops, eating the same food they did. His personal reflections, never intended for publication, reveal a man constantly struggling to live by his principles, not to impress others, but because he believed it was the only worthy path. Epictetus, on the other hand, began his life as a slave, without power, without possessions, without physical freedom. Yet even in these conditions, he developed an inner strength that eventually attracted students from all over Rome. He did not need to proclaim his wisdom. It was evident in the serenity with which he faced circumstances that would have crushed lesser spirits. And what about Seneca, an advisor to emperors and one of the wealthiest men in Rome? He was often criticized for apparent contradictions between his philosophy and his life. But he himself acknowledged these flaws. "I am not wise, and to your annoyance, I never will be." This honest acknowledgement of his imperfections, combined with continued efforts to improve, demonstrated a kind of integrity rarely seen among public figures. What did these very different men share? A deep understanding that value lies not in what you say, but in how you live. They didn't write self-help manuals or claim to have all the answers. They struggled, day in and day out, to live by principles they held true. In our age of social media and constant self-promotion, this approach seems almost alien. We are bombarded with messages that we should sell ourselves, create a personal brand, and advertise our achievements. But look at the people we truly admire in our personal lives. They are rarely the ones who talk the loudest about their qualities. Think of Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison without losing his dignity or his commitment to reconciliation. Or Viktor Frankl, the concentration camp survivor, who turned his suffering into wisdom that benefited millions. These people prove their worth through actions and circumstances that many of us can barely imagine. The lesson the Stoics offer us is clear and profound. True worth doesn't need to be announced. It reveals itself naturally through how we face challenges, how we treat others, how we maintain our integrity even when it would be easier to give in. And this first lesson leads naturally to the next. The crucial distinction between internal virtue and external validation, a conflict that lies at the heart of much of the anxiety and dissatisfaction we experience today. Chapter 2: Internal Virtue versus External Validation. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies a revolutionary idea. There's only one true good, virtue. Not wealth, not fame, not pleasure, not even health or survival. Only virtue, excellence of character, living in accordance with our rational nature. This perspective turns our modern relationship with self-worth upside down. In contemporary culture, we are constantly measuring our worth through the eyes of others. How many likes we receive, what impression we make in a job interview, how our body or clothes compare to the standards of the moment. The problem with this system of external validation is not just that it is superficial. It is that it fundamentally places us at the mercy of something the Stoics knew was completely beyond our control: the opinions of others. Be more concerned about your conscience than your reputation, Seneca advised. Your reputation is what others think of you. Your conscience is what you think of yourself. When we base our sense of worth on how we're perceived, we hand over our emotional well-being to entirely external forces. A negative comment at work can ruin our day. A romantic rejection can devastate our self-esteem. A social media post that gets no engagement can make us question our social worth. And here we encounter one of life's great paradoxes. The more desperately we seek approval, the less likely we are to receive it. People are naturally drawn to those who don't seem to need their validation. The constant need for external affirmation often manifests as insecurity, and that insecurity shows. Try taking an honest inventory. How much of your daily actions are motivated by genuine values, and how much are influenced by the desire to be perceived a certain way? When you post on social media, are you expressing something authentic or seeking validation? When you make a career choice, are you following your principles or trying to impress others? For those who struggle with social anxiety, this distinction is particularly liberating. Fear of judgment is, in essence, placing excessive importance on something outside of our control. Stoic practice invites us to refocus on what really matters: our intentions, our values, our character. How do you distinguish between genuine internal motivations and a need for approval? The answer lies in a simple question. Would you still do it if no one ever knew? Would you still be honest if you could lie without consequences? Would you still help someone if there was no recognition? This shift in focus, from external validation to internal virtue, doesn't happen overnight. It's a constant practice, a daily reorientation of our attention. And to cultivate this new orientation, we need concrete practices that strengthen our mental presence and self-control on a daily basis. Chapter 3: Daily Practices to Cultivate Presence and Self-Control. Mental strength is not a trait we are born with. It is a capacity we develop through consistent practice. Much like strengthening a muscle, the Stoics understood this truth deeply and developed a rich repertoire of daily exercises to cultivate mental presence and self-control. At the heart of these practices is Stoic meditation, which is distinct from contemporary mindfulness meditation, but equally powerful. One particular form, the view from above, invites us to imagine our lives from a cosmic perspective, as if we were zooming out from Earth, seeing first our home, then our city, our country, the entire planet, and finally the vastness of the cosmos. This exercise is not just to make us feel insignificant, but to put our problems in proper perspective. That presentation that worries you so much, that comment that hurt your feelings, that rejection that seems to define your worth. From a cosmic perspective, we see these events for what they really are: fleeting moments in the continuous flow of existence, important perhaps, but rarely as catastrophic as our fears would have us believe. The Stoics also valued exercise as involuntary discomfort, intentional practices of temporarily depriving oneself of the comforts we are accustomed to. Seneca, even though he was extremely wealthy, regularly practiced periods of living as if he were poor, eating simple food, wearing basic clothing, sleeping in modest conditions. It is precisely in times of immunity from disturbance that the mind must prepare itself for hardship, he wrote. In modern practice, this might mean taking an occasional cold shower, doing supervised intermittent fasting, or simply turning off the air conditioning on a hot day. This isn't masochism, but deliberate training. Each voluntary discomfort teaches us that we can handle much more than we imagine, that our comfort zone is a self-imposed prison, and that there's profound satisfaction in discovering our own resilience. Temporary abstinence complements this practice. Choose something you enjoy, perhaps social media, sugar, alcohol, or even complaining, and abstain completely from it for a set period of time. Notice what happens, the urges that arise, the initial restlessness, and eventually the freedom from being controlled by that habit. This exercise strengthens what the Stoics considered our most important capacity, the ability to choose our responses rather than be ruled by impulses. Active gratitude was also central to the Stoics, long before modern science confirmed its mental health benefits. Not passive or forced gratitude, but a deliberate recognition that much of what we have could easily be gone from our lives. Marcus Aurelius practiced imagining losing the people and things he loved, not out of pessimism, but to cultivate genuine appreciation for their presence. To establish a morning routine based on Stoic principles, set aside 15 minutes at the beginning of your day for 3 simple practices: reviewing the day's potential challenges, premeditatio malorum, setting intentions that align with your values, and taking a moment of mindful gratitude. This simple ritual establishes a mental foundation that will positively influence your entire day. In challenging situations, a heated argument, a moment of intense anxiety, a disturbing news story, the practice of Stoic mindfulness involves a conscious pause. Take a deep breath. Remember the distinction between what you can and cannot control, and ask yourself, what does virtue require of me in this moment? This simple question redirects the mind from reactive to intentional. For those who struggle with anxiety, these practices offer powerful tools for breaking cycles of worry. A cosmic perspective puts catastrophic fears into perspective. Voluntary discomfort demonstrates our ability to face what we fear. Abstinence frees us from addictions that fuel anxious states. Gratitude redirects mental focus to the positive already present. With consistent daily practice, something remarkable begins to happen. Our mental presence and self-control manifest not only internally, but in our physical expression. And this brings us to the next crucial aspect of how we demonstrate value without words: our body language. Chapter 4. Body language as a reflection of a disciplined mind. Our bodies never lie. While our words may disguise our inner state, our body language reveals deeper truths about our inner state. The Stoics understood the profound connection between mind and body, what Epictetus called harmony between the faculties of the soul. Observe truly confident people, not those who proclaim their confidence, but those who genuinely possess it. They move with a distinct quality, neither hurried nor lethargic, but with deliberate purpose. Their shoulders are relaxed, but not slumped. Their posture is erect, but not rigid. Their gaze is direct, but not intimidating. These qualities are not conscious affectations, but outward manifestations of a cultivated state of mind. Conscious eye contact is perhaps the most powerful element of body language. In the age of smartphones, it's become rare to find someone who maintains consistent eye contact during a conversation. Yet this simple practice, really looking at the person you're talking to, communicates respect, presence, and self-confidence more clearly than any words ever could. When we are anxious, our nervous system goes into overdrive, manifesting itself in microtensions. Clenched jaw, shallow breathing, raised shoulders. These tensions, in turn, reinforce a state of anxiety, creating a negative cycle. Techniques to consciously calm the nervous system: deep diaphragmatic breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, subtle stretching, not only make us feel better, but completely transform how we are perceived by others. The Stoic practice of focusing only on what is within our control naturally changes our body language. When we are not constantly worried about the impression we are making, our expression becomes more open, our gestures more natural, our presence more authentic. This change may seem subtle, but it is immediately noticeable to those who interact with us. Try the modern Stoic pose exercise. Feet firmly planted on the floor, weight evenly distributed, shoulders relaxed, chest open, chin parallel to the floor. Take 3 deep breaths in this position. Notice how you feel, probably more centered, more present, more confident. This is not a stilted pose to impress, but realignment to reflect outwardly an inner state of balance. In social and professional situations, our body language communicates powerful messages before we even open our mouths. Nonverbal cues of insecurity, constantly fiddling with our hair or clothes, avoiding eye contact, speaking too softly, nervous gestures, can undermine our credibility regardless of the quality of our ideas. The truth is, we don't need to consciously manipulate our body language to project confidence. Instead, by genuinely cultivating inner qualities like presence, acceptance, and self-control, our physical expression naturally aligns. This congruence between the inner and the outer is immediately noticeable and infinitely more powerful than any superficial power-posing technique. And it is precisely this congruence that allows us to face one of the greatest tests of our worth, how we respond when faced with adversity. Because it is under pressure that our inner practices truly reveal themselves. Are you enjoying the video? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Chapter 5, Responding to Adversity Calmly. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This quote, often attributed to Viktor Frankl, perfectly captures the essence of Stoic philosophy on how to face adversity. At the heart of Stoic practice is a crucial distinction between what we can and cannot control. Epictetus began his handbook with this fundamental observation. Some things are within our power, while others are not. External events, the actions of other people, natural disasters, disease, all are outside our direct control. Our response to these events, however, remains entirely our own. The Stoic pause is a simple but profoundly powerful technique. When faced with a provocative situation, whether it's an insult, a criticism, a disappointment, or a disaster, commit to pausing for 3 to 5 seconds before responding. During that brief pause, take a deep breath and ask yourself, is this within my control? How can I respond virtuously? These few seconds can make the difference between a reaction you regret and a response that demonstrates your character. Mindful breathing during stressful times isn't just a psychological trick. It's a direct physiological intervention. When we're stressed, our breathing becomes rapid and shallow, further triggering our fight or flight response. Slow, deep, deliberate breathing, taking 4 seconds on the inhale, holding for 2, and releasing for 6, literally resets our nervous system, allowing the rational part of our brain to take over. Cognitive reframing, the practice of reinterpreting adverse situations, was central to the Stoics. It is not the things themselves that trouble us, but our interpretations of them, wrote Epictetus. When faced with challenge, we can consciously choose to see it as a paralyzing obstacle or as an opportunity for growth. This is not a toxic denial of reality, but an acknowledgement of the power of our perspective. One of the most valuable skills we can cultivate is the ability to respond, not react to provocations. Reacting is automatic, impulsive, often driven by fear or anger. Responding is intentional, aligned with values, and governed by reason. When someone criticizes us unfairly, reacting can mean either returning the blow or withdrawing in resentment. Responding can mean listening with genuine curiosity, appreciating actionable feedback, if available, and standing firm on one's principles regardless of the other person's behavior. History is replete with figures who have demonstrated astonishing calm in crisis. Nelson Mandela, emerging from 27 years of imprisonment without bitterness. Viktor Frankl, transforming the horror of the concentration camps into a philosophy of meaning. Malala Yousafzai, responding to violence with advocacy for education, not with hatred. These people were not born with emotional superpowers. They cultivated, through conscious practice, the ability to choose their responses even in the most extreme circumstances. Mental simulation of adversity, what the Stoics call premeditatio malorum, is a powerful exercise. Take a few minutes each morning to calmly imagine challenges you might face during the day, a conflict at work, a traffic problem, a disturbing piece of news. Visualize yourself responding with calm, dignity, and alignment with your values. This practice is not pessimism. It's mental training that strengthens your resilience before it's tested. For those struggling with depression and anxiety, this approach offers a valuable tool for breaking cycles of emotional reactivity. Often, it's not the initial event that causes us prolonged distress, but our reaction to it, and then our reaction to the reaction, creating a downward spiral. The practice of pausing, breathing, and consciously choosing our response interrupts this cycle before it gains momentum. The true measure of our character is not how we behave when things are going well, but how we respond when faced with adversity. And in that response, we reveal more about our worth than any words could ever convey. This ability to maintain equanimity under pressure is perfectly complemented by another quality that demonstrates value without words: the art of genuine listening. Chapter 6: The Power of Active Listening. In a culture obsessed with being heard, where everyone talks but few listen, the ability to be truly present to another human being has become a precious rarity. The Stoics understood that wisdom comes not from speaking eloquently, but from listening deeply. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Observe Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism. This ratio, 2 ears, 1 mouth, offers us a reason why listening should occupy a greater place in our interactions than our actual speaking. Deep listening begins with a fundamental practice: the temporary suspension of judgment. When someone is speaking, our natural tendency is to continually evaluate, agreeing, disagreeing, formulating counterarguments, relating to our own experience. This constant mental activity prevents us from truly understanding what is being communicated. Stoic practice invites us to temporarily suspend this flow of judgment, creating an open mental space where we can fully receive what the other person is expressing. Full focus on the other person is another essential element of active listening. This means setting aside not only external distractions, phones, computers, television, but also our internal distractions, worries about the past or future, anxieties about how we will respond, or thoughts about what we will do next. When we give someone our full attention, we silently communicate something profound. You matter, your words matter, your experience deserves to be witnessed. Socratic questioning, named after Socrates, a major influence on the development of Stoicism, involves asking genuinely curious questions that deepen understanding. Not rhetorical questions designed to demonstrate our intelligence or leading questions that steer the conversation where we want to go, but open-ended questions that invite the other person to explore their own thinking more deeply. What made you come to that conclusion? How did you feel when that happened? What aspect of this is most important to you? There's profound wisdom in the paradox that talking less and listening more often demonstrates more value than the other way around. When we dominate a conversation, we communicate insecurity, a need to prove our knowledge, intelligence, or importance. When we genuinely listen, we demonstrate self-confidence. We are secure enough in our own worth that we don't need to constantly announce it. Active listening strengthens relationships in ways few other practices can. Feeling truly heard is one of the deepest and most unmet human needs. When we offer this gift to someone, whether a romantic partner, a co-worker, a friend, or a stranger, we create a connection of trust that transcends words. A powerful practice is to commit to listening without interruption. In your next meaningful conversation, try allowing the other person to fully complete their thoughts before responding. Don't interrupt. Don't finish sentences. Don't mentally prepare your response while the other person is still speaking. Simply listen with the genuine intention of understanding, not responding. Watch how this simple practice transforms the quality of the interaction. In both personal and professional relationships, active listening often resolves issues before they need to be addressed directly. Conflicts often arise not from fundamental differences, but from a sense of not being understood. When people feel truly heard, many of the tensions that fuel conflict naturally dissolve. And while listening demonstrates value in the present moment, there is another temporal dimension through which we silently prove our worth: the consistency of our actions over time. Chapter 7: Consistency in Actions. Words teach us, examples lead us. This ancient proverb captures a truth that the Stoics understood deeply: the transformative power of consistency. For the Stoics, living philosophically was not an occasional intellectual exercise, but a daily, hour-by-hour practice of aligning actions with principles. The concept of harmony between words and deeds was at the heart of Stoic practice. Seneca warned against being a philosopher in words alone. Philosophy is not an occupation of public presentation or spectacle. It consists not in words but in actions. This warning is particularly relevant in our age of grandiose mission statements and inspirational blog posts that often fail to translate into actual behavior. Why is consistency more powerful than intensity? Because real life is not made up of dramatic, heroic moments, but thousands of small daily choices. A person who exercises intensely once a month does not develop health. One who walks moderately every day does. A relationship does not thrive on occasional grand romantic gestures, but on small daily acts of thoughtfulness. Our character is formed not by rare monumental decisions, but by the accumulated pattern of seemingly insignificant choices. Small, everyday actions build a solid reputation precisely because they are hard to fake. Anyone can behave virtuously when they know they're being watched. The real test is how we act when we believe no one is watching. Over time, these consistent behaviors create an impression that no amount of self-promotion could match. Keeping commitments, especially small ones, is an often underrated transformative practice. When we say we'll call, we call. When we promise to send something, we do. When we set a time, we follow through. These seemingly small actions communicate something profound. My word is valuable. You can count on me. In a world where commitment are often treated as flexible suggestions, this consistency stands out dramatically. The compounding effect of ongoing integrity works like compound interest, initially imperceptible, but eventually powerful. First, people notice it. Then, they begin to count on it. Eventually, they base important decisions on it. A reputation for trustworthiness and integrity isn't built overnight, but once established, it becomes one of your most valuable assets. One practical exercise is to create a simple Stoic consistency tracker. Identify 3 core values that you want to consistently embody, perhaps honesty, courage, and justice. Each night, honestly evaluate how your actions that day reflected those values, not as an exercise in harsh self-criticism, but as a practice of self-awareness and alignment. For those struggling with anxiety and depression, consistency offers a powerful antidote to the sense of out of control that often accompanies these conditions. Establishing and maintaining small daily routines, even as simple as making your bed, meditating for 5 minutes, or walking around a block, creates islands of order and predictability in seas of emotional uncertainty. Quiet consistency builds trust in others in a way that declarations never could. Consider 2 people. One who frequently proclaims his values and commitments but inconsistently follows through on them. Another who rarely discusses his intentions but acts with consistent integrity. Who would you trust more? The answer reveals the power of consistency as a quiet demonstration of value. This understanding of the power of consistency naturally leads us to a fundamental question. How do we determine where to focus our energy? The answer lies in the most central tenet of Stoic philosophy: the distinction between what is and is not within our control. Chapter 8. Separating what is under your control. Some things are within our control, while others are not. Within our control are opinion, motive, desire, aversion, and, in a word, everything that is our own. Not within our control are body, property, reputation, position, and, in a word, everything that is not our own. With these words, Epictetus established what many consider the most fundamental principle of Stoicism, the dichotomy of control. This simple but profound distinction has the power to completely transform our relationship to anxiety, stress, and unnecessary suffering. Identifying what is truly within our control requires brutal honesty. We tend to vastly overestimate our sphere of influence, believing that we can control outcomes when in fact we can only control our efforts. We can't control whether we get the job, but we can control the quality of our preparation. We can't control whether someone will love us back, but we can control how we express that love. We can't control whether we get sick, but we can control our lifestyle choices and how we respond to illness. True liberation comes when we focus exclusively on what we can influence. Mental and emotional energy are finite and precious resources. Every moment we spend worrying about things we cannot control is a moment stolen from what we can truly influence. As Marcus Aurelius observed, don't get lost in your thoughts about the past or worries about the future. Focus your mind fully on the present moment. One practical technique for categorizing worries involves dividing them into 3 categories: Those under your complete control, your thoughts, judgments, values, efforts. Those under your partial influence, your health, relationships, career. And those completely beyond your control, the weather, natural disasters, the actions of others, past events. This simple categorization often reveals how much time and energy we waste on worries we cannot affect. The circle of control exercise, inspired by Stephen Covey, but deeply stoic in principle, involves literally drawing two concentric circles. In the inner circle, list everything that is under your direct control. In the outer ring, list what is under your partial influence. Outside the circles, acknowledge what is completely beyond your control. This visual exercise serves as a powerful reminder of where to direct your mental and emotional energy. For those who suffer from social anxiety and excessive worry, this principle is particularly transformative. Anxiety often thrives on the illusion of control. We believe we can and should control how others perceive us, what they think of us, whether they approve of us. The recognition that these perceptions are fundamentally beyond our control is not a defeat, but a liberation. The peace that comes from letting go of what we cannot control is not passivity or resignation. Rather, it is a strategic reallocation of energy, letting go of useless worries and focusing entirely on where we can make a difference. As Epictetus taught, do what you can with what you have, where you are. And it is precisely this ability to consciously direct our mental energy that allows us to cultivate another essential quality that demonstrates value without words: emotional resilience in the face of criticism and rejection. Chapter 9. Cultivating Emotional Resilience. The Stoics had a nuanced view of emotions. They did not seek to eliminate all feelings, as is often misrepresented, but to cultivate a more conscious relationship with our emotional responses. For them, intense negative emotions were not inevitable responses to external events, but the result of inaccurate judgments about those events. Emotional resilience begins with a technique the Stoics practiced daily: premeditatio malorum, or anticipating adversity. Each morning, Stoic philosophers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius took a few moments to calmly consider the challenges they might face during the day. This wasn't an exercise in anticipatory anxiety, but rather a mental workout, like an athlete visualizing challenges before a competition. Begin each day by saying to yourself, "Today I will encounter meddling, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." This advice from Marcus Aurelius does not promote pessimism, but rather mental preparation. When we anticipate possible adversity, we remove the element of surprise that often amplifies our emotional reactions. Negative visualization, or worst-case scenario practice, complements this approach. When faced with a feared situation, such as giving an important presentation or starting a difficult conversation, calmly visualize the worst reasonably possible outcome, not to fuel anxiety, but to acknowledge that even this outcome will be bearable, that you would survive and find a way forward. This exercise often reveals how exaggerated our fears are and lessens their power over us. Cosmic perspective, as we discussed earlier, serves as a powerful tool for cultivating resilience. When faced with criticism or rejection that seems devastating, expanding our temporal and spatial perspective puts these events in proper context. As Marcus Aurelius reflected, "You are a little spirit carrying a corpse," reminding us of our mortality and cosmic insignificance, not to diminish our worth, but to free us from the tyranny of petty concerns. Responding to criticism without defensiveness is one of the clearest manifestations of inner strength. When criticized, our instinctive reaction usually involves counterattack or self-justification. Stoic practice offers us an alternative. Listen with genuine curiosity. Separate the useful from the useless. Be grateful for the opportunity to grow, and move on without the need to defend our ego. Seneca proposed an exercise he called insult testing, regularly exposing yourself to minor criticisms and practicing receiving them with equanimity. He noted that just as the body grows stronger through gradual exercise, our emotional resilience grows when we practice responding virtuously to minor provocations. A powerful practice is to keep an emotional resilience journal. When faced with criticism, rejection, or failure, document the event, your initial reaction, the judgments that fuel that reaction, and a response that is more aligned with your values. This journaling not only promotes self-awareness, but also makes your growth over time visible. for those struggling with poor mental health. Turning rejections into opportunities for growth is not just an inspiring platitude, but a concrete practice. Every criticism or rejection offers valuable insights about ourselves, about others, about the context. The key question is not, why did this happen to me? But what can I learn from this? Maintaining equanimity when publicly challenged is perhaps the ultimate test of inner strength. We rarely observe it, but it is unmistakable when present. The person who, in the face of public criticism or humiliation, responds not with defensive anger or withdrawn shame, but with calm dignity and genuine concern. This quality cannot be faked. It is a result of consistent practice and deep self-knowledge. And it is precisely to develop these qualities systematically that we need regular practical exercises, a training regimen for the mind as disciplined as any physical fitness program. Chapter 10. Practical exercises to strengthen your mind. 7-day beginner Stoic mental strengthening program. Understanding Stoic principles is just a first step. True transformation comes through consistent practice. This 7-day program is designed for beginners to gradually apply Stoic concepts to their daily lives. Day 1. Abstinence from complaining. For a full 24 hours, challenge yourself to not complain at all, either out loud or in your head. When you feel the urge to complain, pause and reframe the situation as an opportunity for growth, or simply as a neutral fact. Keep a small journal to record how many times you felt the urge to complain and how you redirected that thought. Day 2. Minimal voluntary discomfort. Incorporate small discomforts into your routine to strengthen your resilience. Take a cold shower in the morning, skip a meal, or turn off your phone notifications for an entire day. Observe how your mind reacts to discomfort and practice Stoic indifference in the face of these small adversities. Remember, we are not seeking suffering, but rather training our ability to not be controlled by comfort. Day 3. Practice intentional silence. Set aside 2 hours of your day to practice complete silence. No talking, texting, social media, or information consumption. Use this time to simply observe your thoughts without judgment. This practice helps us realize how much of our communication is unnecessary and ego-driven, and reconnects us with our inner dialogue. Day 4. Cosmic perspective exercise. Spend 15 minutes contemplating your smallness in the universe. Look at the night sky or visualize the earth from space, then your country, your city, until you reach yourself. Reflect on the brevity of human life compared to the age of the universe. This exercise is not intended to diminish your importance, but rather put your problems in perspective and reduce anxiety about transient issues. Day 5. Challenging tasks without mentioning to anyone. Perform a difficult task or meaningful act of kindness without telling anyone or posting it on social media. This could be an anonymous donation, helping a stranger, or completing a challenging personal project. The goal is to learn to find satisfaction in the virtue of the action itself, not in the external recognition it may bring. Day 6. Active gratitude practice. For an entire day, before you use any object, pause for 3 seconds to consciously acknowledge your gratitude for that item. Before you drink water, be grateful for having access to clean water. Before you use your computer, be grateful for technology. This exercise develops awareness of the preferables in your life that often go unnoticed. Day 7. Reflection and integration. Take 30 minutes to reflect on the previous 6 days. Write about each exercise. What did you learn? Which ones were most challenging? How did you feel during and after practice? Identify which exercise had the biggest positive impact on your mindset and commit to incorporating it into your weekly routine. Stoic mental strengthening doesn't promise to eliminate all of life's challenges, but it does offer practical tools for facing them with dignity, clarity, and purpose. As Epictetus said, "It is not the things themselves that trouble us, but the judgments we make about those things." If you liked the video, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive a message whenever a new video is released. Okay? Thanks for watching this far, and see you next time.